All right, we're going to jump right into this incredible story, but not from the very beginning. We're starting at what is maybe its most critical, nail-biting moments.
So picture this. It's July 20th, 1969. For the first time in history, two humans are descending to the moon's surface. And back in mission control, you could cut the tension with a knife. That quote you see, "We're breathing again," that was said after the landing, and it tells you everything about just how close this whole thing came to total disaster. So here's the problem. The autopilot, the computer that's supposed to be handling this delicate landing, is taking them right into a crater filled with massive boulders. I mean, we're talking car-sized rocks. With the clock just ticking down, Commander Neil Armstrong has to take over. He grabs the controls, his heart rate is just skyrocketing, and he's desperately scanning this totally alien landscape for any spot that's safe enough to land.
And just to make things even more stressful, alarms start blaring in the cockpit. A 12:02 program alarm, then another one. What does that mean? It means the guidance computer is overloaded. It's basically crashing. And the reason is kind of wild. The rendezvous radar, a system they didn't even need for landing, was accidentally left on, flooding the computer with useless data. Now, according to the mission rules, an alarm like this, that's an immediate abort. Game over.
So while the geniuses back in Houston are scrambling to figure out what's going on with the computer, Armstrong is just burning through fuel. He's flying sideways now, searching for that safe spot, and the fuel gauge is dropping fast. They are down to less than a minute of fuel left. After that, they either land or they have to fire the engine and get out of there. No second chances. And then, with literally seconds to spare, these words come crackling through from 240,000 miles away. So calm. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. He found a spot. They're on the moon. And this is so much more than just a landing. It's maybe the single greatest moment in the entire history of exploration.
Okay, so they made it, they're safe on the surface. After a whole lot of system checks, it was finally time to open that hatch and step out into a completely new world.
So, about 6.5 hours after that crazy landing, the hatch finally opens, and this ghostly black and white image gets beamed back to Earth. Think about it. Over 600 million people, a massive chunk of the entire world's population, are glued to their TVs, watching this blurry figure carefully make his way down the ladder. And then it happens. His boot touches the surface, and he says it. The line that everyone knows. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. People still argue about whether he said for a man or just for man, but honestly, it doesn't matter. The meaning was crystal clear. For the first time ever, a human being was standing on another world.
He's joined on the surface about 19 minutes later by Buzz Aldrin, who looks around and describes the scene with two perfect words: magnificent desolation. Just brilliant. And for the next couple hours, they do the work. They plant an American flag, scoop up the first priceless samples of moon rock, and of course, they take this absolutely iconic photograph.
But wait a second. How did we even get here? I mean, why take this unbelievable risk? This whole thing cost a fortune. It pushed technology to the absolute brink. And the truth is, it wasn't just about science or exploration. It was the finish line of a very, very desperate race.
You have to remember, this is the height of the Cold War. In 1957, the Soviets launch Sputnik. It's just this little beeping ball in space, but it totally freaks America out. Then, a few years later, they send Yuri Gagarin into orbit, the first human in space. It was a huge psychological blow. Let's be honest, America was getting its butt kicked in the space race.
So what does President Kennedy do? He doesn't just say, hey, let's try to catch up. No way. He stands up and makes this unbelievably audacious promise. He sets a goal so far out there, so seemingly impossible that it basically reset the whole game. Landing on the moon? Neither the US nor the Soviets had any idea how to do that. It forced everyone back to the starting line.
So, you make a promise like that, how do you keep it? Well, it took an absolutely mind-boggling combination of brilliant people and incredible machines.
First, you need the muscle, and that was the Saturn V rocket. I mean, look at that thing. It is still the most powerful rocket ever built. And sitting right at the very top of that controlled explosion were these three guys: Armstrong, Collins, and Aldrin. They weren't like best buddies or anything. One description called them amiable strangers. But that didn't matter. They were the best of the best, a perfectly professional team.
In the spacecraft they were flying, it was this amazing piece of engineering. It wasn't really one ship. It was 3 ships in one, all docked together. You had the command module, Columbia, which was basically their little home for the trip. That's where Michael Collins stayed, orbiting the moon. Then you had the service module, which was the engine and life support. And finally, you had this spindly-looking thing, the lunar module Eagle, which was the part that would actually take Armstrong and Aldrin down to the surface.
And here's a little detail that I just love. Neil Armstrong, this quiet, unassuming guy from Ohio, he understood the history of this moment. Tucked away in his personal kit, he carried a tiny piece of wood and fabric from the Wright brothers' 1903 airplane. Think about that, a piece of the very first airplane, going all the way to the moon. He was connecting the dawn of flight on Earth with his giant leap to another world.
So after just over 21 hours on the moon, it was time to go. Armstrong and Aldrin blasted off in the top half of the Eagle, leaving the bottom part behind. They linked back up with Michael Collins, who'd been patiently circling the moon all by himself, and then it was time for the long 3-day trip home. On July 24, 1969, Columbia splashed down safely in the Pacific. So let's look back at that promise Kennedy made 8 years earlier. Land a man on the moon? Check. Do it before the decade is out? Check. And return him safely to the Earth? Check. They pulled it off, with just 5 months to spare.
Yeah, sure, this was a victory in the Cold War, but it ended up being so much more than that. They left some science gear, they left the flag, and they left this boot print. And in a world that felt like it was falling apart back in the late 60s, that single footprint in the dust became this incredible symbol. It was proof of what we can all do when we decide to do something that seems absolutely impossible.
And that kind of leaves us with a question, right? The Apollo program united millions of people behind a single, breathtakingly ambitious goal. So, more than 50 years later, what's our moonshot now? What is the next great challenge that can unite us all?